Hi there, you are watching a video of API 653 inspection and repair of above ground storage tanks. Let's start with section 6, inspection. Organization. The inspection section is one of the most important in the standard. It is organized as follows: 6.1 General Requirements, 6.2 Considerations for inspection frequency, 6.3 External inspections, 6.4 Internal inspection, 6.7 Checklists, 6.8 Records. It could be construction, inspection, repair, and/or alteration, and 6.9 Inspection Report. Let's talk about the general requirements of the inspection section. The purpose of inspecting a storage tank is to ensure or maintain the integrity of the tank, and therefore verifying the suitability for service. Inspections, except those defined in section 6.3, shall be conducted by an authorized inspector. Internal inspections. In terms of frequency, several factors must be considered to determine the inspection intervals for storage tanks. These include, but are not limited to, the following: the nature of the stored product, allowable corrosion and actual corrosion rate, corrosion prevention systems, construction and repair methods and materials, leak detection systems, change in operating mode, for example, filling cycle frequency, any change which results in the floating roof support legs making frequent contact with the ground, the existence of double or release prevention barriers, etc. The interval between tank inspections, both internal and external, must be determined by its service history unless specific reasons indicate that an earlier inspection is required. Whenever possible, the service history of a given tank or of a tank in a similar service, preferably in the same location, should be available to help determine a service interval according with corrosion rate of the tank, control tank, candidate tank ratio. Let's remember that the candidate tank is a tank whose corrosion rates are not known, and the control tank is a tank whose corrosion rates are known and documented. Let's talk about external inspections. Routine in-service inspections. The external condition of the tank will be routinely monitored by a thorough visual external inspection made from ground level. This inspection can be performed by owner-operator personnel, in other words, unauthorized inspectors. The owner-operator can perform this routine inspection as long as they have detailed knowledge of the operation of the storage facility, the tank, and the characteristics of the stored product. The inspection interval should be based on the conditions at the particular location, but should not exceed 1 month. This routine inspection includes a visual inspection of all the tank exterior surfaces, evidence of leakage, tank shell distortions, signs of settlement, corrosion, the condition of the foundation, coating, etc., must be documented for follow-up action by an authorized inspector, as indicated in API 653 section 3.4. Another type of external inspection are the visual external inspections. All tanks must be visually inspected by an authorized inspector. This inspection should be called external inspection and should be carried out at least once every 5 years, or the result of RCA divided 4N in years, whichever is less, where RCA is the difference between the measured shell thickness and the minimum required shell thickness in mils, and N is the corrosion rate in mils per year. The tank may be in operation during this inspection. Insulated tanks shall have enough insulation removed to adequately inspect the tank shell and roof. Ultrasonic thickness inspection. External ultrasonic measurements of the shell can determine the overall general corrosion rate while the tank is in service, and can provide an indication of the tank shell's integrity. The extent of such measurements will be determined by the tank owner-operator. When used, ultrasonic thickness measurements shall be made at intervals not exceeding the following. A. The maximum interval will be 5 years when the corrosion rate is not known. And B. When the corrosion rate is known, the maximum interval will be the lesser of RCA divided to N in years, as defined earlier, or 15 years. Let's now talk about internal inspection. In general, internal inspection is required mainly to verify that the bottom of the tank is not severely corroded and leaking, gather the necessary data for the minimum bottom and shell thickness evaluations detailed in API 653 section 6, identify and evaluate any tank bottom settlement. Intervals. All tanks must have a formal internal inspection in periods not longer than those defined in API 653, section 642. The authorized inspector is responsible for the evaluation and must ensure the quality and completeness of the non-destructive tests. For existing tanks, the tank owner-operator must review the internal inspection interval and comply with this section within the first 5 years since the 4th edition of the API 653 standard. The initial internal inspection interval of newly built tanks will be A. The interval from the initial in-service date to the first internal inspection shall not exceed 10 years unless the tank has one or more of the leak prevention, detection, corrosion mitigation or containment measures listed in API 653 Table 6.1. The initial internal inspection date will be based on incremental credits, safeguards, in Table 6.1, which are cumulative. Table 6.1 of the API 653 is displayed on the screen, where we can see the different tank safeguards and the cumulative periods that could be added to the initial interval. Subsequent inspection interval. Subsequent inspection intervals will be determined as follows. A. Using the corrosion rate measured at the bottom of the tank and the minimum remaining thickness according to API 653 section 445. Or B. Alternatively, the subsequent inspection interval can be established using the risk-based inspection assessment of API 580. Also, the requirements in API 653, section 64222 must be met. Let's now talk about records, repair and alteration history. The repair alteration history will include all data accumulated for the tank, starting from the time of its construction, regarding repairs, alterations, replacements, and service changes. These records should include the effects of any coatings and linings. Inspection reports. The authorized inspector must prepare a written report for each external and internal inspection. These inspection reports, along with the inspection's recommendations and any actions taken regarding these recommendations, will be maintained by the tank owner-operator for the entire life of the tank. Local jurisdictions may have additional reporting and record-keeping requirements for tank inspections. Section 12. Examination and tests. Let's review the non-destructive examination requirements, NDE. Any NDE, including personnel qualification and acceptance criteria, will be in accordance with API 650 and any supplemental requirements in API 653. Any new weld deposited or any cavities resulting from grinding or thermal excavation should be visually examined to determine additional NDEs. Regarding shell penetrations, an ultrasonic test examination should be carried out to look for laminations in the adjacent area when a reinforcement plate is installed on an existing unreinforced connection. A hot tap connection is added. Cavities resulting from grinding operations to remove attachment welds from a reinforcing plate shall be examined by MT or PT methods. Welds connecting the nozzle neck to the shell or a reinforcing plate to the shell and nozzle neck must be examined by MT or PT. Repaired weld defects. Butt weld repairs should be examined along their full length by the appropriate NDE methods, normally RT or UT. This does not apply to certain tanks' shell plates to shell plate repairs. Welds between shell plates. New full penetration welds attaching new plate to existing plate or existing plates to existing plates shall be examined by RT, see API 653 section 12.2. New welds joining new shell plates, addition or partial replacement of a shell course need only be RT examined as per API 650 standard section 8.1. In the case of shell-to-bottom welding, new shell bottom joints should be evaluated along their entire length using a right-angle vacuum box and a soap solution, or by the diesel oil test. In addition, the first weld pass will be examined by applying light diesel to the side opposite to the weld. The oil will be allowed to settle for at least 4 hours, preferably overnight, and then the weld will be examined. Tank bottoms. Once the tank bottom welding is complete, the plates and new welds should be visually examined for possible defects and leaks. Special attention will be paid to sumps, dents, gouges, breaks, 3-plate lap joints, blows or arc strikes, areas where temporary attachments have not removed, etc. Visual test, acceptance and repair criteria are specified in API 650 section 8.5. In addition, all new welds, including the weld attaching a patched plate to the bottom, areas of the bottom restored by welding, and any repairs on welds found to be defective during an internal inspection, will be examined by one of the methods specified in API 650 section 733. Radiographs are the most important NDE method to inspect storage tanks. Let's talk about the number and location of radiographs. The number of location of radiographs of full penetration shell plate joints shall be in accordance with API 650 section 812 and figure 8.1 as reproduced below. Regarding vertical joints, for new shell plate welds, no additional radiographs are required, other than those required by the API 650, section 8122 and figure 8.1 for new construction. For welds of new plate to existing plates, an additional radiograph will be taken at each joint. For repaired welds on an existing plate, an additional radiograph will be taken at each joint as well. As for horizontal joints, for new shell plates, no additional radiographs are required, other than those required by API 650, section 8123 and figure 8.11 for new construction. For welds of new plates to existing plates, an additional radiograph will be taken for every 15.2 meters, 50 feet of horizontal joint. For repair welds on an existing plate, an additional radiograph of every 15.2 meters or 50 feet of horizontal joint repaired. Intersections of vertical and horizontal joints. For new shell plate to new shell plate welds, no additional radiographs are required other than those required by the API 650, section 812 and figure 8.1 for new construction. For replacement of new shell plates to existing shell plates, each intersection shall be radiographed. All repaired intersections in existing shell plates must be radiographed. Since all these requirements for horizontal, vertical joints and intersections could be tricky and cumbersome, we display on the screen a summary of the requirements regarding the joining of new plates and existing plates, including vertical joints, horizontal joints and intersections. Hydrostatic test. A hydrostatic test maintained for a minimum of 24 hours must be carried out when a tank has been rebuilt, major repairs or alterations have been made to the tank, or an engineering evaluation indicates a hydrostatic test is needed due to an increase in the severity of the service. On the other hand, hydrostatic testing is not required for major repairs and alterations in the following cases: when repairs have been reviewed and approved by an experienced tank design engineer in accordance with API 650, the exception must be documented in writing and, obviously, when the owner or operator of the tank has authorized in writing. Let's check now Annex C, checklist for tank inspection. Annex C presents different checklists to be used as a guide when performing several and different internal and external inspections. As we can see on the screen, one of the checklists is for tank in service. It means external inspections. While the other checklist included in this annex is for tanks out of service. In other words, internal inspections. Annex F, Summary of NDE Requirements. Annex F summarizes the non-destructive testing requirements according to the techniques that will be used, the inspection requirements, and the respective reference sections of the API 650, API 653 as applicable. Additionally, it indicates acceptance criteria, which tests require personal certification, and which tests require a qualified procedure. It is a very useful guide for consultation by the auditor. In Annex F, reproduced on the screen now, the welds requiring inspecting. It is a very useful guide because the referenced sections of the API 653 are indicated in the right column. At the same time, the API 650 sections are also indicated in the right column.